What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I am Chad, the Reseller Rockefeller. Today is actually June the 27th. It's about 8:30 p.m. I haven't made any content in quite some time. I was just sitting here today and I told myself, look, I'm going to make a video tonight. I got a pretty interesting story to share with you guys. I also have some questions that I want to answer that I got on, Instagram and YouTube and also Twitter. Also, we're going to be talking about the summer slowdown. It seems to be that, everybody's freaking out over their sales. So we're going to talk about that later on in the video. Before we jump into this interesting story, I want to give you a brief rundown on, kind of what's been going on around the home front. Business has been great. I've been doing a lot of listing here lately. That's what I do right in the beginning of the summertime. I usually list, and there's a huge reason for that because I don't want that summer slowdown. I don't want my sales to drop. I don't want my sales to decline. I want my sales to increase during the summer. So before summer comes, I usually ramp up my listing quite a bit. I try to list at least triple what I'm normally listing. I'm also trying to list items that I think is going to sell for sure during the summertime. So I'm constantly listing items like beach toys, swimsuits, things that I've purchased over this past couple of months, getting ready for summer to arrive. Those are the kinds of items that I'm listing, swimsuits, swim trunks, floaties for the children. I did really good last year selling the, blow-up floatable devices that you can put in water, beach and stuff like that. I bought a bunch of them wholesale, and I did extremely good last year selling those. I don't know why I did not do that this year. Last year, literally, I made about $22,000 over the summer selling nothing but inflatable blow-up, swimming devices. It was all kinds of stuff from ducks to alligators to all different kinds. I bought them completely wholesale from China, and I did so good selling those on Amazon and eBay. But this year, I did not do that. This year, I focused a lot on swimsuits. I got a really good deal at a local auction about 4 months ago. I bought about 1,200 swimsuits. So I've been listing those. I've already sold quite a few of them. I've been listing a few other things that are summer related. So that's what I've been doing here lately. Other than that, at the home front, we've been getting things fixed up. We're about to get some goats. So I had to put up a new fence. I also had to do some electrical work out in the warehouse. The warehouse is currently not air conditioned. So it's extremely hot out there during the daytime. So here lately, I just got done rewiring everything out in the warehouse. I also am getting it prepped and ready to have the contractors come out so I can put insulation in the warehouse and I can finally get the air conditioner installed. So it's going to be amazing when I finally get the air conditioner installed, but it's still a few months out. So for right now, I'm literally staying in the office area, and I'm listing a lot of items right here at my little photo booth that I have set up. It's just a little temporary photo booth. I do have my large photo booth set up out in the warehouse. If the item is big, then I'll photograph it out there, but I usually don't go out there until later on in the evening just because of the temperature. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump off with these questions, and then I'll get right into this actual story that I want to share with you. First, let's get these questions out of the way. Question number 1 on the list. Do you sell on Amazon? Yes, I sell on Amazon. I used to sell quite a bit on Amazon years ago, but over the past couple of years, I've kind of slowed down tremendously. I think last month I only did like $3,600 on Amazon. I average about $35,000 to $4,000 a month on Amazon, which isn't much compared to what I used to do years ago. I used to sell tons of books on Amazon. I used to sell tons of other items, but it's kind of just slowed down for me. I really do focus more on eBay, and I'm starting to focus on a few other platforms at the moment as well. Let's see, what do you recommend new resellers to start off selling? if I had to recommend anything to new resellers as far as what you should start off selling, I would just say sell stuff that you already own, things that are around your house, because you don't have to invest anything. Go out to yard sales, go to some estate sales, buy some cheap items, learn the system, learn eBay, learn how to photograph items, learn how to list items, learn how to ship items, and then start building your knowledge and start exploring buying more stuff. Once you figure out that this is a business that you want to actually be in, that's when I would start actually investing in inventory. I wouldn't start investing in inventory right now if you're just now starting out. That's just something that I wouldn't do, because you don't know if it's going to be something that you're actually going to like. You don't know if it, for all you know, you could, buy and sell 6 or 7 items, and then you say, this just isn't for me. I'm not capable of doing it, or I don't like it, whatever the case may be. So you don't want to run out there. I've seen plenty of resellers make this mistake. They tell themselves that they're going to become a reseller, and the first thing they do is they go out there and they buy 6 or 7 pallets from bulk.com or some liquidation website, because they want to be, the big dog coming into the business. And that's just a huge mistake, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to put out that kind of money unless you have that kind of money to just throw away. By all means, then do whatever it is that you want to do. But if you want, advice from a reseller, somebody that's been doing this an awfully long time, I wouldn't recommend that you go out there and invest too much money. So let's move on to the next question. Do you think clothing is a good route to go for new sellers? This is a tricky one. I mean, clothing is definitely profitable. You can definitely make money with clothing. Do I think that it's a good route for newer resellers? Clothing is definitely an item that you're going to be able to find. No matter where you live, you're going to be able to find clothing, because there's Goodwills all over the country. There's Goodwill bins where you can buy the clothing by the weight. There's Goodwills. There's other thrift stores. So clothing is definitely the go-to item for newer resellers. I've noticed that over the past couple of years. Some of the biggest resellers on YouTube are clothing sellers. And it seems that clothing has kind of taken over the reselling market, especially on YouTube. There seems to be tons and tons of clothing sellers. But for me personally, I sell clothing. I have really good friends of mine that sell clothing. I also have, acquaintances on YouTube that sell clothing. And it seems that, the amount of volume that you have to do is a little bit for me. I don't really think selling that kind of volume. If I were to be a clothing seller, to make the kind of money that I make on a monthly basis, I would have to just sell so much clothing that it wouldn't even be possible for me myself. I would have to hire probably 4 to 5 employees to sell enough clothing to make anything close to what I'm making right now by myself, selling the kinds of items that I sell. So that's the only drawback that I have with clothing. And also, clothing is just one of those items that I'm just not interested in. It's something that it doesn't intrigue me. I'm not really interested in, dealing in items that don't intrigue me, that don't get me excited. The whole reason why I got into reselling in the first place is I love finding items that are unique, finding items that are super rare. I love finding stuff that I've never seen before, and I love doing the research on those kinds of items. I love taking items to my local museum and having people look at them. I just recently took a dinosaur tooth to a museum in Tampa, and it was a fun experience. I bought this tooth at an estate sale about 3.5 years ago, and it sat right on my mantle at my old house for about 3 years, and finally I decided to take it to a museum and have it looked at. They don't give you prices at a museum, but they definitely will look at items for you. So that's a good tip for all of you out there. If you come across like artifacts and things of that nature, take it to your museum. Your museum is more than willing to take that item and properly look at it and identify it, and they will do a wonderful job, at least from my experience. I have had nothing but great things to say about my local museum and a few other museums in the area. So, just clothing just doesn't intrigue me. It's just not interesting to me. Like I said, though, I do sell clothing, but the clothing that I buy is some high-end pieces if I see it out at yard sales or estate sales, but I don't intentionally go out looking for clothing. Other clothing items that I'll buy is military stuff. I'll also buy vintage items and really unique stuff like concert t-shirts or some really vintage, weird, quirky stuff. Stuff that's just weird and unique, that's what I go after. All right, next question is, hi Chad, do you offer free returns? I've actually been asked this question quite a few times. The answer is yes, I offer free returns. As of right now, I am top rated plus. I am also a power seller, and I also got 100% positive feedback with about 11,000 or so, actually on this account, a little over 12,000 feedback. So with the free returns, on certain items, especially stereo equipment, stuff that I haven't tested, which I don't have a whole lot of items listed that are untested, but I do every now and then sell items that are for parts or untested, whatever the case may be. And on those items, I will put no returns. So, but for everything else, free returns. If it's a big item, a heavy item, then obviously I will not put free returns because it's just not, it's not profitable for me to have them ship back an item that, is super big and it weighs a lot and it's going to cost me a lot of money. But for the most part, yes, I do offer free returns. All right, let's go ahead and get right into this story. It is extremely, to me, this is the kind of story that I live for, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys out there. So let me go ahead and start off by saying, this past weekend, I went out to yard sales. I go out to yard sales and estate sales every weekend. It was Saturday morning. I pulled up to a yard sale. It was probably like, my 12th or 15th yard sale of the day. It's probably about 10:30 a.m. I'm just now getting, finished up yard selling. And I pull up to this yard sale and it's a woman and a man. She said that they had some more items inside the house for sale. So they had some stuff outside, some stuff inside. So it was kind of like an estate sale, but not everything was for sale. So I end up walking around for quite some time. And you got to remember now, this was later in the afternoon. So in Gainesville, the yard sales, they usually end between 12 and 1 o'clock. So at this time, I'm thinking, there's probably not going to be much for me to be able to find. It's later in the day. All the good stuff is probably already, sold. So I'm walking around this estate sale. I'm looking through boxes and I pull out of one box. There was a couple of VHS tapes. There was some CDs, some audio disc, a few other random media. And down in the bottom, I pull out 3 cases of Sega Genesis games. They, the black fold cases, the plastic ones. I pull out 3 games. All 3 of them had great labels. I open them up. They all 3 had the games in them with the manuals, and they look to be in pristine condition. So I immediately take the games to the woman. I say, how much? She says, give me $5 for all 3 of them. I said, okay, sure. So I go back. I start looking at some other items, and I get this weird feeling that I need to ask the woman if she has any more games. Just for some reason, I got the weirdest feeling, and it almost made me like warm inside. I started to kind of sweat and feel nervous or something. So I walked back up to her and I said, hey ma'am, I just wanted to see, do you have any more games by chance? And she said, yes, I actually do. Those games I set out there to see if somebody would be interested, in hopes that I could find somebody that knows more about games and toys. And so I explained to her at this point that I'm a reseller. This is what I do. I buy and sell things. I explained to her, who I was, my business name, all of that good stuff. I immediately gave her my business card, and I'm going to pause the story right there for a second. The main reason why I tell people that I am a reseller is because sometimes you have to kind of fill out the situation. Sometimes telling somebody that you're a reseller can actually hurt you, not benefit you. But sometimes it can benefit you more than it can hurt you. And so for this instance, this woman was probably in her late 70s, early 80s. Her husband was probably in his late 80s. I could obviously tell that they had no clue anything about video games. They were selling off their estate for whatever reason. I didn't ask them. But I'll get in later on. You're going to find out, everything. But the main thing that I'm trying to explain right now is there's a time and a place for you to tell people that you're a reseller, and that's what you do. Because sometimes people need that reassurance that they're going to be treated right, and that they're going to be treated fairly, and that you're a professional. So they understand it when it's in the moment, and you got to understand that you are only going to know when you need to say this, more than anybody. So sometimes, you might not want to say that you're a reseller, but in this instance, I wanted to tell her immediately that I was a reseller. This is what I did. I wanted her to feel that there was no reason to worry, and that I was going to treat her fairly, no matter what the outcome was, even if it was just to help her with some advice on how to price the items. And also at this point, I didn't have a clue what I was getting myself into. So, all right, let me go back to the story. So she ended up telling me that her son-in-law passed away about 3 years ago. And I immediately was taken back. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm my condolences go out to you, the family. And she, went on to tell me the story. It was a tragic car accident. And she had, inherited all of the items that was in the home. She was renting the home to her son-in-law. She owned the home, and she was renting the home to him when he passed away. And ever since then, the house has literally been sitting empty. Nobody has been living in it. So I immediately suspect that the house that I'm standing in is the house that she's referring to. But when I asked her to actually see the items, she said, no, I'm sorry, it's not this house. It's this other house that I own in Lake City, Florida, which is from Gainesville about an hour and 20 minutes away. So I immediately explained to her that I'm interested. I asked her a few questions about the items, if they're video games, if they're toys. Does she know anything about, what kind of games they are? Are they PlayStation, Nintendo, Sega? She didn't know anything. She just said that there is a huge collection of video games and a fairly large collection of actual toys. So I asked her if she had any photos. She said that she was going to call her sister-in-law and see if they could get some photos. So I ended up waiting around for about 20 minutes, and she got some photos. So I'm looking at the photos on her phone, but she doesn't have a smartphone. She has an old school, I think it was like a Verizon flip phone. And so I'm looking at these photos, and I can barely see everything. I couldn't see in detail, but I could see that there was a room, and then on the back wall was a bookshelf that appeared to be custom built for games, because all of the shelves were only spaced a certain amount, just enough to fit games in between. And I could also see tons of toys on the right wall, and then all on the floor I could see nothing but just video games stacked up. Some of the stacks were probably 4 to 5 feet tall, and some of them were in boxes, some of them were in cases. The video games ranged from Sega Genesis to Nintendo. I don't know if there was anything else. I know I could identify, Sega Genesis game, Nintendo games. There were a few consoles in the corner on a little, it was like a little pedestal shelf. There was just tons and tons of really good stuff, but I couldn't really see that good in the photos. So I immediately told her that I was interested. I immediately told her, when would we be able to go and look at the items? She said that her husband's son was going to be coming down from Georgia, I think is what she said. I might get some details wrong, but She said her father's son, or no, her husband's son was going to come down from Georgia within the next couple of days, and he was supposed to be coming to actually help sell this collection of video games. So I immediately thought to myself, if this gentleman comes down, he might not, want to sell them to me. He might try to, take them to a video game store. He might try to, you never know what they're going to do. So I told her that I was really interested and that I was a serious buyer. I had cash. She also, hinted to me a few times throughout this, this whole entire conversation. She needed to get the items out kind of in a rush, that the house was being put on the market and that she kind of needed this stuff cleaned up and it needed to be done fast. So I immediately knew that I had to jump on this deal right now. I had to pull the trigger and I had to seal the deal. So I immediately explained to her that I could come out now or I could come out in a couple of days. She explained to me that, they would be coming out to Lake City this weekend coming up. So I explained to her that I really am interested. What would it take for me to, buy this collection right now, cash money? And she explained to me that she did not have a clue, what it was worth, but that if she could get $4,000 for everything, that she would be extremely happy, because that's what it's going to cost her for the moving company to come in and move everything out of the house. So I told her, let me look at the pictures one more time. I studied the pictures for about 5 minutes, and I said, look, without seeing the items, it's a gamble, but I'm willing to do $2,000 cash. If you would do that, I would give you $500 now, $1,500 when I go to pick all the items up, and I would be willing to do that right now. She spoke to her husband for about 3 minutes. She turned around, she shook my hand, and that was the deal. I pulled the trigger on a room full of video games and toys without even seeing the items. The only thing that I seen was 4 photos on an old school flip Verizon phone, and I purchased everything, and it wasn't a hard decision at all to make. And so that's my whole story, and the whole reason that I wanted to share this story is not only is it unique, not only is it interesting, at least to me it's interesting. And the main reason that I wanted to share this story with you guys is that I've noticed over the past couple of years that, so many resellers are just extremely scared to pull the trigger on a purchase without doing tons and tons of research on an item. And I can completely understand it. I understand the whole concept behind, not wanting to buy an item and losing, money on it. But you got to understand, sometimes there's going to be deals. Sometimes you're going to have, deals come up where you can't look the item up. I know for sure that I've heard other resellers mention that, they were at somebody's house or they were inside of a store and their phone just wouldn't work. So sometimes you just got to use your brain and the knowledge that you already have to pull triggers on deals, and sometimes you just got to gamble. I know that there are tons of resellers out there that would say that they would never do something like this. Not only would they be afraid of the items being crap, but also they would be afraid of getting ripped off. And this is just where peer experience has to come into play. I've been buying and selling stuff since I was like 12 years old. I've been in and out of so many, houses. I've met so many people that I think at this point in time, I'm such a good judge of character that, I'm willing to take that gamble. And, in all reality, it's a $500 gamble, but it could possibly pay off so big that I'm willing to actually risk that $500 to jump on this deal. So I just wanted to share that story with you guys. I hope y'all enjoyed that story. Also, I wanted to talk briefly on the summer slowdown. I heard, so many other resellers make videos about it, so I'm not really going to touch on it too much. But I've been seeing so many people on Facebook, everybody talks about the sales during the summer. Everybody's sales seem to be decreasing during the summer when they should be increasing. And I'm just going to give you a few tips and pointers Basically, these are just my opinions, and this is what works for me. It might not work for you, but for the months upcoming for the months up and coming until summer gets here, I'm always buying items that I think will sell during the summer. I'm constantly looking for outdoor equipment, camping equipment, barbecue equipment, swim trunks, swimsuits, anything of that nature, tailgating stuff. You got to realize that all of the Americans during the summer go on vacations. They go to the beach, they go to the springs, they go to the pool. So anything that you can buy that's related to any of those things that they're going to be doing, go ahead and purchase those items, hold on to those items, and then when summer comes, list those items. Years ago, I used to see a big dip in my sales during the summer. But ever since I started to implement these two things that I'm about to tell you, my sales have increased during the summer, not decreased. So that's the first thing that I do, is I search out items that I know for sure will sell during the summertime. The second thing that I do is I triple my listings. So, on an average day, I usually only list, 10, 15 items a day. But during the summertime, I'm listing double or triple that number. I try to list, 20, 25 items, 30 items a day. And you got to understand, I'm a one-man operation, so I can't list, 60, 70 items like some of you out there that have, numerous people working for you. So, those are the two main things that I do during the summer to increase my sales, not decrease my sales. And the other little tip that I do is I'm running big sales. So during the summer, I take advantage of those the summertime as being a time for me to liquidate a bunch of old inventory items that I've had in my store for a long time. I throw those items on sale, sometimes 30, 40, 50% off, because I'm trying to get that stuff out of my store and get it gone for good. So those are like the three main things that I do during the summer to increase my sales. So hope that helped everybody out there. I hope the story was interesting. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'm going to be able to make some more content soon. I really appreciate everybody that has stuck around and subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate all of you that subscribe to the channel and comment on a regular basis. Thanks a lot to everybody out there. Until next time, folks, peace.